All right.
The east side of St. Paul is a lot like my hometown, and it's probably a lot like yours too. Like so many other older neighborhoods across the country, it's gritty, it's real, it's blue collar. It's been home to wave after wave of new immigrants from the time St. Paul was founded. Families mattered here, beliefs were shared, and east side pride was strong. It's not exactly the land of sky blue waters that Ham's beer made famous and made on the east side until the 1980s when the plant shut down production. But for years, the land of robust industry. 3M, Ham's, Whirlpool, all provided paychecks for hundreds of workers. And now those jobs are gone and they're not coming back. But there's another chapter to the east side story. The same work ethic, steely determination, and heartfelt pride that have characterized the east side for over a century are bringing it back to life, despite the recent foreclosures, the loss of industry, and the economic downturn that makes it hard for anyone to get ahead. And they're doing it together, new and longtime residents working side by side. Good morning. I'm Andriana Abariotes. I'm the Executive Director of the Twin Cities LISC program, and I am proud to be part of an organization that has been working with and supporting such passionate partners to rebuild this community. When LISC first came to St. Paul in the Twin Cities, the east side was the first neighborhood we began working in. We were responding to a foreclosure crisis of the early 80s, and we were working with our partners on the east side and our national LISC network to bring innovative financing tools and to help foster ways to stabilize the neighborhood. In 2007, when once again the neighborhoods all over the country were experiencing the destabilizing impact of foreclosures, we in the Twin Cities were able to build off of our experience on the east side and apply it to not only in the neighborhood and on the east side, but to the region and across the state through the Minnesota Foreclosure Partners Council. And this has been one example of how local initiatives and small success lead to broader regional impact and larger successes. Our work on the east side has evolved over time, and as you've seen throughout the past 2 days, as we started our work in housing, we learned that residents want to live near vibrant commercial areas where they can purchase goods and services and find access to jobs. So we responded and we got involved to help make things happen on Payne Avenue. We helped support the engagement around revitalization and the revitalization of a neighborhood school that was important to providing quality education on the east side, and as well as serving as a resource to families and a source of community pride. Each step along the way, we learned alongside our partners, new and old, how each piece of the community mosaic fit into the broader picture. And that's where we are today. We understand that what we're doing is building a community mosaic, and that each organization and resident brings their strength and their piece to this broader puzzle. We're working together to figure out how those pieces best align to achieve the vision that the East Side community has for itself. Today, you're going to be hearing from our partners, elected officials, civic partners, business owners, longtime residents on video and here in person. Excuse me. And they're going to tell us what East Side is like, what makes it special, and how they're working together, and working together not always being an easy task. But they're confident that they're going to achieve their vision for a prosperous East Side. In the video you're about to see, you'll get a good feel for what the East Side community is like. You can tell from the comments that folks are very passionate about this neighborhood. You'll hear from a small business owner who's worked with our partner, the Neighborhood Development Center, and as an example of what the long-term nature of this work is. You'll also hear from our civic partners. After the video, you'll hear from 3 of our community-based partners and get a feel for what comprehensive community development looks like on the East Side, from the perspectives of the individuals who are working with residents every day. First, you'll hear from Kevin Martineau, who's the Executive Director of the American Indian Family Center and the Chair of the East Side Prosperity Campaign, which is the comprehensive community development effort in the community and really guiding the plan for a higher quality of life in the neighborhood. And he's going to tell you more about that. Then you'll see a video featuring our Financial Opportunity Center work on the East Side, which they call the East Side Center for Working Families. And our panelist, Susan Ollie, the Senior Director at Lutheran Social Services of Minnesota, will share more with you about the impact of those programs having on families and the broader community. Through our experience, we've also learned that community development, to be truly sustainable, has to be driven by, owned by, and implemented by community. This requires resident and business owner engagement. Our third video highlights examples of how our partners have engaged with residents to affect change and how organizations have partnered together to address major community concerns like the foreclosure crisis. Our third presenter, Mary Bongiovanni, the Executive Director of the Eastside Neighborhood Development Company, will expand on the importance of resident engagement and how her organization adapted and changed in recognition of the power of community engagement. Welcome to the East Side. Let's hear from those who are keeping East Side pride alive and well.
Well, the East Side has gone through tremendous transition in the last 40 years.
Everyone in my family worked at 3M. My mother, my father, my grandmother, my grandfather, all my aunts and uncles, everyone who I knew on the East Side worked at 3M. I'm an outlier because I've never had a job at 3M, but I'm lucky because my husband does.
This was a working class neighborhood. This was a neighborhood where you could walk to work, where you didn't necessarily have to have a 4-year degree to have a job where you can buy a home and raise a family, and that is no longer the situation.
Challenges face all cities and all neighborhoods, especially inner city neighborhoods like the East Side. We have an area here that lost 6,000 manufacturing jobs in a span of just a couple of years in the mid-'80s. We had great facilities like 3M, which the East Side really gave birth to. Ham's Breweries, Singer, you had all these incredible companies that were here that went away, not slowly, but all of a sudden. What has been wonderful about what's occurred lately is that the families have had the support of so many different partners, like LISC, but the City of St. Paul, Ramsey County, the school district, to say, how do we rebuild the fabric of this community and provide opportunity for everyone?
The city actually was part of a very broad and important movement of the Phelan Corridor, which was a road that was sort of an old railroad bed, lots of polluted land along it, and old industrial hulks that through a variety of state, federal, and local funding, those got taken away. The ground was cleaned up and new businesses have come in to sort of revitalize and spread out the number of employers that we have.
Well, I think what was really significant about that investment is that this new roadway was called the Phelan Corridor, which really speaks to the heart of this neighborhood. But the Phelan Corridor literally links up on its eastern end with Prosperity Avenue. And so the Phelan Corridor leads and led to prosperity in this neighborhood.
Because every place is in transition. There's no such thing as the status quo in a community. All communities are either on the ascent or the decline. The East Side has made a very clear decision that it is going to be on the ascent.
This is a really diverse and even more diverse community than it has historically been. First, we saw a lot of immigrants from Central and South America, and the Latino community has really thrived over here on the East Side. Now we're seeing immigrants continuing in from Asia, one of the largest centers of the Hmong population in the entire country. We're starting to see immigrants from East Africa. So if we're going to rebuild this community, we have to do it in a multicultural way. We have to do it in a way that recognizes all the cultures that have come to this community to call it home.
I was flying under the radar. So they taught me how to do some books and do some computer work, and I got above the radar and I continued and I opened the cleaning service. And there was 12 classes that you take, and each class is different, and it helps you put together a business plan. I'd like to own the building that I'm in right now. Right now I lease, and in order to do that I'll have to go through NDC. You know, they'll help me, they'll back me however they can.
LISC has been central to the success of this neighborhood. The Eastside Neighborhood Development Company was one of the first organizations that LISC funded when they came to town. They supported the housing work within this neighborhood. They supported the economic development work along Payne Avenue. They supported the development of the Phelan Corridor.
One of the incredible things that we have had here in the city of St. Paul is support from our nonprofit partners, who view the city not as the enemy, but as really kind of an integral and vital part of their efforts to help revitalize communities. So whether it's LISC, or whether it's Eastside Neighborhood Development Corporation, or the Neighborhood Housing Service, there are an incredible number of partners that have come to the table to say, what can we do together that we could not do by ourselves?
Good morning. My name is Kevin Martineau, and I'm the Executive Director of the American Indian Family Center on the east side of St. Paul. We're a multifaceted social service program that serves primarily American Indians, but we serve most of the different ethnic cultures on the east side because we have a lot of intermarriage within our families, and we just, one common denominator is that all of our families have at least one adult or children that are identifying themselves as American Indians. I'm also a member of the Dakota Nation. My ancestors, my Dakota ancestors, lived in a place called Imanishka. Their village was a place named Kaposha. Today, Imanishka is called St. Paul, and Kaposha was located at what is now the southern end of the east side. So my family roots go very strong into the area. On the east side, we have a very well-known park called Mounds Park. It is named after the most prominent physical feature of the park, which is several Indian burial mounds that have been there since time before memory. It's very kind of unnerving or humbling to me when I go to the park, because we have several events there each year, and walk among the mounds and realizing that my family history goes back in this area much longer than before Columbus first discovered North America. And obviously, I'm not purely American Indian, and I have other ancestors that came to the area as well through the years. In the video you just saw, they talked a lot about the development along Phelan Avenue Boulevard, the former railroad lines. That same corridor was very important to my Dakota ancestors. It was a trail that led north to very important hunting and fishing grounds. After World War II, that corridor was very important to my father. While I was still a twinkle in my father's eye, he switched boxcars there at night, all night long throughout the summer and the winter. Phelan Corridor is very, very important to the families that live there now, because it's along this corridor that will drive the economic engine of the area. It's along this corridor where businesses that can employ large numbers of people will come back, and they are starting to come back. We have a bakery that's going to be employing 100 people that just recently located there, and they're soon to open up. So it is a very important area to our east side. So I have to tell you about what the East Side Prosperity Campaign is. The big picture is the East Side Prosperity Campaign functions as the nexus where all the individual dots that make up the East Side can and do become interconnected. This is important because, as we know, the sum of the whole is much more important or much more powerful than individual components. I was asked to talk about some of the highlights of the process that was used to bring about the East Side Prosperity Campaign. It started in 2006 with a grant that was received from the Otto Bremer Foundation. It was awarded to the Eastside Neighborhood Development Company. In 2008, as that grant money was running out, LISC, Twin Cities LISC, and Phelan Lake Community Partners stepped up and became involved as funders and guides for the process. I myself didn't start with the Prosperity Campaign until January of 2009. The year of 2009 was I like to call the think tank period. We had about 25 to 30 individuals that were leaders from the community, people from city government, most of the nonprofits, small and large business people that would attend meetings on a regular basis, and we started to lay out and outline what the Prosperity Campaign was going to become. We laid the groundwork for what the vision was for the Prosperity Campaign. Then the Prosperity Campaign moved in 2010 for the first 8 months to an interim steering committee, and they were really, I was part of that, and we were really there to set the table what for is now our permanent Prosperity Campaign Steering Committee. It was during that period of time at the interim steering committee that we developed a couple of documents. I think they're in your packets. One is our mission, vision, values, and theory of change document, and the other one is our 4 vision areas, which is a manifesto of what we intend to accomplish in the coming years. Those are community building and civic engagement, community wealth and prosperity, community education and learning, and community health and wellness. These 2 documents are the Eastside Prosperity Campaign's quality of life plan. It was through the development of our 4 vision areas that Twin Cities LISC was able to provide valuable leadership and coaching. As you know, LISC has been involved in comprehensive community development for 30 years now. And for us at the East Side, it was a little bit outside of our comfort area. So LISC came in and provided the leadership and the foundation for us so that we would understand the process better. Even though I'm a man, I've come to realize that it's a lot better when you read the instructions. You get a lot better result at the end. So we're very grateful for the leadership that LISC has been able to provide us in this. They wanted me to tell you about some of the first fruits that we've developed on the Prosperity Campaign. As we are in our 6th year of work, it's important that we share with our Eastside community as well as our funders some of the fruits from our efforts. In both 2009 and 2010, we had some rather large community receptions that was held by the Prosperity Campaign to keep our interested stakeholders up to date on the work of the Eastside Prosperity Campaign. Both of these events were very well attended and enthusiastically received. In 2010, we started holding a series of community engagement planning sessions for each of the 4 vision areas that I had mentioned. Each visionary had a series of meetings that engaged people from throughout the East Side who were most interested in that particular vision area. From my experience, I would say that each vision area had from 25 to 40 people that regularly attended these meetings as they hammered out and discussed and negotiated what were going to be the projects that we were going to be working on. And out of that, each visionary developed an array of probably 8 to 10 projects, of which we, as the interim steering committee, decided to fund 2 from each project with the limited resources we had. And we don't have a lot to report on the projects as of yet because the work of the project has just really begun this past winter, probably about the first of the year. So it's in the infancy stage of that kind of work being done. What is important about the vision areas to the East Side community? Why would the East Side self-select their particular vision areas as a means to transform the place where they live? One does not need to be a trained demographer to see that there are huge disparities in these 4 areas for our community residents. The health, wellness disparities alone are huge for all of our diverse ethnic communities who make up the East Side. With the popularity of both national and local media, such as The Biggest Loser, it's pretty evident to see that we have a problem with what we eat in this country and how it affects our health. Having access to sustainable gardens as well as nutrition with healthy food access will be fundamental in reversing our negative health trends. Learning how to grow and prepare fresh fruit and vegetables will do more to reverse our health disparities in the inner city than any amount of free medical care ever will. We are, after all, what we eat. For the past several years, youth from the East Side community, including many youth from the American Indian Family Center, have enthusiastically engaged in the opportunities to grow their own food and learn new ways to prepare them that they've never before been exposed to. The East Side Prosperity Campaign provides a vehicle for this work to be done across all cultural communities through shared learning. The East Side Prosperity Campaign provides an environment where all the dots can be connected. Through community education and learning, we can learn how to address our community health and wellness. Why is this important to a small nonprofit like the American Indian Family Center? For us to measure the importance of the East Side Prosperity Campaign to us in a matter of dollars would be pretty difficult to do, but I can tell you it's priceless. The American Indian community in Minnesota is 1% of the population. We're 1% of the population in St. Paul, yet 66% of the people that my program serves reside on the East Side. It's pretty challenging, to say the least, to be able to affect transformative change in our community as small as we are without some sort of help. When we are given the opportunity to join in partnership with the larger East Side, community efforts become our community efforts. We can join with theirs, and you can see change start to happen. Their efforts become our efforts, their knowledge becomes our knowledge, and positive transformation and change is happening. I look at the East Side Prosperity Campaign and realize that it is a very Dakota thing. In the language of my ancestors, the word Dakota means friend and ally. The East Side Prosperity Campaign makes us all friends and all allies. Imanishka is once again becoming a Dakota place.
Typically, they will bring a relative in, a sister, a brother, a friend, a co-worker, and it's just really the basic things. What we do is sit down and set up a roadmap with them. Everything is at their pace. So if a person comes in and says, hey, Henry, I'm looking for employment, then we're going to talk about employment. We're going to touch a little bit about financial counseling, but we really don't want to touch too much on that if we don't have employment. We need to make sure we have the income to pay the bills. Once we establish that income, then they normally come back and say, you know, I've been working for 3-4 months now. I want to address maybe some of the issues on my credit report. And it can also be the opposite way. If somebody comes in, they have a job, they start addressing the issues on their credit report. Next thing you know, they say, you know, Henry, now I'm taking care of my credit. I see my credit score is going up. Now I may be thinking about I'm renting, but I want to become a homeowner. One of the challenges that a lot of people are facing right now, but especially on the east side, is foreclosure. We don't have a lot of people that are employed right now. We have some people that are looking for employment. We have people that are looking for financial stability, looking for rental, looking for home ownership, looking to get employment, looking to increase their net worth, or just even maybe start all over and begin rebuilding their credit. I think a lot of things that people sometimes took for granted, we now really understand how important it is to have good credit. We understand why it's important to have a job, maybe a full-time job, a part-time job. Before, you just assumed that everybody was going to have a job.
I wasn't working for the past 2.5 years. I lost my job. I used to work with a photo company in Egan, and I lost my job, and then eventually I suddenly took sick. So I moved there because the rent was kind of reasonable. So that's why I went there. But now I'm trying to get myself out from there. That's the reason why I got involved with the Lotto and Services program.
We offer 3 core services here: financial coaching, employment coaching, and income support. So we're really looking to make sure that we hit on those 3 target areas to make sure that people understand they're taking advantage of all the benefits they might be able to take advantage of when it comes to income support. When it comes to employment, we're making sure if you're currently working, is there a chance for career advancement? So we want to make sure you're taking advantage of that. If you're maybe making $10 an hour, could you be in the same employer or for a different employer doing something different in the same field though, making $14 an hour? And then we have the financial coaching, also financial counseling piece, which is also really important today because a lot of people, they know their credit score is kind of what drives a lot of things in the industry. Maybe a car loan rate, interest rate on your home, or even qualifying for a home, a credit card. So those are our 3 main core services. And the idea is that if we can concentrate on all 3 of those and perfect those, that you should eventually over time have financial stability.
So I decided to come here. So they say I have to see a counselor. have to work with the counselor. So I got to Henry, and he's a very nice guy. He's patient and is like, to me, he's just like a brother. I can talk to him easily about anything. He helped me so good with paying my bills.
That we're all kind of going through the same struggles, that everybody's maybe living paycheck to paycheck. The idea is if you're living paycheck to paycheck today, is that in a year from now, if we meet with you, that we'd have a different response from you. Same thing with your credit score. If your credit score is a 600 today, then hopefully in a year from now when we met with you, we pulled your credit, it'd be a 680. So kind of teach them the new things or things that they've known before, but just reiterating those things and making sure they still understand those things that were important 20 years ago are still important today.
Hi, I'm Susan Ollie with Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota, and I oversee our financial services programming across the state. We became involved with the programming on the east side about 5 years ago. Traditionally, our agency hadn't been on the east side prior to that time. But we really had an opportunity to become involved with the program that you just saw with the Center for Working Families, which was a model by the Annie Casey Foundation, which LISC was the funder, and we were a sub-grantee of that program, and the first one in the Twin Cities area. At the same time that LISC was looking to fund and support the Center for Working Families, we were also approached by Thrivent Financial for Lutherans, who had piloted a community savings center in the Chicago area, and we're looking to do a second site in Minnesota, and we're really focusing on the east side of St. Paul. So it was a community savings center was really a concept of bringing together a financial institution together with financial programming such as financial counseling, IDAs, the match savings programs to build assets together, and offering alternative products like to check cashing and other predatory payday loans for low to moderate income families. So as we were these two opportunities came together about the same time, and has been a great pilot over the last 3 years to bring financial counseling, our IDA program, and particularly the Center for Working Families. The Center for Working Families is a bundled approach to providing services, which is now the new, now called the Financial Opportunity Centers, but really bundling, looking at financial coaching, employment coaching, and access to public benefits to really make a difference in people's lives. As we were really thinking about the process that was brought together, that LISC led in bringing together community members to kind of say, how should this look? It was really about helping people get a hand up. It's not a handout, and how we can really support the residents of the East Side. As we looked at kind of sharing the story that you saw, Henry is our program coordinator, and he said a lot in 3 minutes as he went through. But really looking at Jocelyn's story and how she came in actually to look at enrolling in our IDA program and looking at that, but really realizing that she was not in a place to do that. As she mentioned in her on the video, she had lost her job, and she really had a lot of some serious illness, and so had a lot of medical bills. And if any of you have gone to the doctor and had to have, had some serious medical problems, you just don't have one bill. You have many, many bills. If you have a radiologist, anesthesiologist, the prescription. So she had a lot of medical debt. She got reemployed. and was working, and and that's one of the pieces is we take people where they're at. She couldn't really deal with any of her debts without having a job, so once she became employed, we partner with Goodwill Easter Seals in helping people find employment, plus with our own coaching and other community partners who also do employment work. Once she had a job, well, then it was time to kind of work on her credit. She saw our financial counselor, had an assessment. We do debt management, but with all of the way her bills were, it just didn't work. She actually, excuse me, she actually meets with Henry probably 2-3 times a month, and they really are taking all those little medical debts and kind of checking them off one at a time, really looking at where those priorities are, maybe making joint calls in the office. And he really is a coach. He's not doing it for her. He's at her side, helping her make those decisions as how she needs to move forward to become stable and finding out where her needs are. Another client that Henry has worked with, he really helped her improve a credit score. She came in, again, unemployed. She went through one of the steps, one of the employment programs, First Step, Next Step, that really worked in training to be a nurse's aide position, and through a program that was focused on the east side as well. And then she got a grant that allowed her to get a secured credit card, and then her credit score went from 0 to 600. So it's just those little steps that really can make a difference in going along. The other piece about the bundled services is that, for instance, when someone gets their job and they got their job, you're just on your way. Okay, you've got a job, what's next? And we're really there for post support. So just as in Jocelyn's case, she gets her job, she can come back and whatever she needs to kind of that follow-up, what happens after I have the job and I have these debts to deal with and things to do with that. So the impact of the bundling, particularly, and then access to public benefits, which, many times when people are working, that maybe they don't see themselves as being able to get, food supports or child care support or, medical assistance. And there's a lot of people who really would qualify for those things, even though that they're working. So it's really looking at all of that we always talked about, that three-legged stool in our planning process, about getting the job and then the good coaching and really finding out what other resources are there to get good support. What this has done for our organization as well is it really has helped to leverage other programming. The other piece that Jocelyn she's enrolled in an IDA program, so now she is at a point where she can save. So it really helps to cross-refer and really get people to where they need to be. Externally, it's really working with the other agencies in the community to best serve the clients. We're not there to provide everything. We're there to really connect people with where they need to go, and not necessarily here, call this number. It might be that soft handoff to say, gosh, you need to go to this agency. I'm going to give them a call and introduce you to them so that people feel like they're not just getting pushed around. As this program, started nearly 5 years ago, LISC has been an ongoing support, not only in our initial funding, but for program model support as we've gone through different stages as the Center for Working Families has involved not only program support for us, but there's other programs now in the Twin Cities. They bring us together and help convene and look at what our common goals might be, sharing best practices and really to kind of make a better program. And so networking with the other programs is really key. And then, of course, now we've got new funding that will allow this work to continue and is a real valuable part for the residents of the community. As Kevin is talking about the Prosperity Campaign, for a program like the Center for Working Families, that's a great place for us to be at the table and to connect. To learn about what other resources there are in the community, and for us to share about the work that we're doing, and seeing where the connections can be made, what might be best for the residents. Really, the Prosperity Campaign really is about bringing organizations together on the East Side and to have that common goal. Everybody working together has to meet the needs of the community versus everyone kind of working alone. Nope, I'm doing this, you don't touch that or whatever. So it's really important that everyone works together, and the Prosperity Campaign has really provided a venue for bringing the agencies and businesses together on the East Side. Thanks.
When I became familiar with the Prosperity Campaign, it was around trying to break down the isolation that happened among organizations that specialized in a particular service.
Well, the East Side is really rich with many nonprofit organizations, and the city government and the county government actually put in a lot of resources here too.
I was hired for a job that was about resources for business owners that were available for business owners. And certainly I couldn't offer the resources without having some conversation about what's the need. Is there a need for a loan? Is there a need for some architectural services? So I thought the best way to approach that would be one-on-one introductions. So I went door knocking. I talked to enough business owners during that introduction phase that had some common issues or common interests. And so we started organizing committees around certain things like crime and safety, or streetscape design, or some people were interested in fixing up their building facades, and we had resources available for that.
ESNDC definitely has strengths that we don't have, it's particularly in community organizing, outreach and such, and that's been pretty neat partnership over the years.
Certainly the biggest challenge on the East Side, and it's not unique to the East Side, but certainly we've seen the devastation of the foreclosures. How that happened and how we can prevent it from happening in the future. The challenge is to right now stabilize the current community that's here and help people save their homes. Certainly within the Prosperity Campaign, there are organizations that are helping with foreclosure prevention.
LISC has been a strong supporter of our activities and ESNDC's activities for many years. In fact, when I referred earlier to the cycles I've seen in terms of this is the second time, well, the first time we had the foreclosure crisis, which was in the late 80s and into the 90s. LISC basically set up a program working with the city of St. Paul, Housing Finance Agency, and the Family Housing Fund, which basically taught all the CDCs in St. Paul how to buy and renovate and sell foreclosed homes. And pretty much when the second crisis came, it was kind of interesting because folks right away saw us as experts in this, and the reality is we just dusted off what LISC helped us build in the early 90s, and now we're in 2007 and we're basically using the same procedures and processes. Certainly things have changed in terms of the dynamics of the marketplace, but it's kind of interesting because we basically just did what we did in 1992 all over again. More recently, LISC's primary role in terms of this recent foreclosure crisis is they provided some very generous operating support, which was part of the reason we had the resources to figure all this out and work it through. So that's been a real big plus for us.
Good morning. As Andriana said earlier, my name is Mary Bongiovanni, and I'm the Executive Director of the East Side Neighborhood Development Company that's been referred to several times here. And I want to thank LISC for giving us this opportunity to show off our work on the East Side. And I also want to thank the people of the East Side who may or may not have figured out live streaming. We're not sure yet. But I want to thank the people of the East Side for allowing me to speak for them today, because it's taken us a long time to regain our voice after this most recent foreclosure and economic crisis. I've been executive director since 2006, but actually I have lived on the East Side my whole life. I was born and raised on the East Side, and my life in a lot of ways has mirrored the life of many people in our community. It's been a community of welcoming new immigrants. My father came to this country from Sicily and opened the only Italian bakery on the East Side. My mother was born in Sweet Hollow, which is the area where all the new immigrants first came to the little shanty towns before they could afford to move up into the city. And so the history of welcoming new immigrants has very much been my history. My parents eventually owned and operated a restaurant on one of our commercial districts on the East Side. So I am an East Sider, although I've not worked at 3M, which is what a lot of people, how they recognize themselves. So during my 61 years here, I've learned personally and professionally, and I've witnessed the good times on the East Side, the tough times on the East Side, and our long road to solutions on the East Side. ESNDC was hit hard by the foreclosure crisis, and we were the first hit in our community and probably will be the last to recover. We were the second hardest hit zip code in the state of Minnesota, and we were really ground zero for the devastation that was left behind from the predatory lending practices. These foreclosures have left gaping holes in the fabric of our community, vacant lots full of weeds and trash. Most residential properties in the neighborhood have lost an average of $40,000 to $60,000 of equity in the past couple of years, and owners cannot refinance with this negative equity. The economic collapse and job cuts have forced the East Side's unemployment rate to skyrocket and businesses to close. There's been a drastic reduction of community wealth and of individual buying power. And we found that the areas where ESNDC had historically, over 30 years, been strong, building homes, helping businesses start up, rehabbing homes, getting people into houses, that we'd lost all that momentum when people participated in bad mortgage products. And the fact that we'd kept people in houses, that we'd build houses, that we'd build storefronts, but didn't really ultimately affect the lives of the people in there, that was a real awakening for the East Side Neighborhood Development Company. In response to this, in 2007, ESNDC put down its hammers along with its bricks and mortar strategies. And from the outside, I think that a lot of people wondered whether we were still a community development corporation or not, or whether we'd abandoned traditional CDC work. But we found that we needed to go back to our roots, which has been referred to here as our community organizing roots, and we started knocking on doors again. The community hadn't been connected for quite a while. Everybody was in their own personal problems, and it was hard to get people to open their door to us, hard to get people to even consider working together. Our community engagement efforts identified a key need to stabilize the neighborhood, and ESNDC brought people together to figure out how to do that. We reintroduced ourselves as a community catalyst, and with the community, we developed housing quality of life plans. We got people to get together and talk about what's happening in their neighborhood, what's happening to the houses in their neighborhood, what's happening to their neighbors, and identify what the quality of life is that they want in their neighborhoods, and then they worked out a plan to get that quality. What the neighbors could do, what ESNDC might do, what government agencies might do, what other nonprofits might do, and together that became our action plan and our strategy. At ESNDC, we continue to understand that the most effective way to attain those quality of life goals and to strengthen the market for housing and commercial properties and to influence economic policies is to actively engage the people who are most affected, the people who live and breathe in this community. Our community work offers the means for residents and business owners to learn as a cohort of neighbors about their neighborhood issues and global issues. At the same time, through some leadership development training that we do, our neighbors are learning to understand and implement community-based research, planning, and action campaigns related to the vision and their implementation plans. Our place-based approach fosters a geographically captured audience of learners to self-select the information and the skills they need to improve the community. Our model is comprehensive and is evolving and reaches far beyond traditional civic participation. Our biggest success stories to date are about the identification and support of local community leaders. It is a big step to open up your door to a stranger, and once they do, it is amazing to see the neighborhood come alive and comfortable with each other. Shauna was our first success story. We met Shauna when we were outdoor knocking on a cold winter day, and she stepped out on her front porch and quickly started talking about what was going on at her house, what was going on in the houses all across the street from her who lived there, what the structural problems were with the houses. She knew everything. She was the expert. She quickly became the go-to person for help in the neighborhood. One day, Twin Cities LISC was touring the east side, and they wanted one of my staff to lead the tour. But I think we were meeting with a funder at the time, and we said, sorry, we don't have anybody available, but we called Shauna. And as this big tour bus pulled up in front of Shauna's house, she sheepishly got on the bus, and the whole neighborhood was watching as she gave LISC a tour of her neighborhood. Later, we heard that Shauna had amazed the group of community building professionals. I met Kim when I knocked on Kim's door on Lawson Avenue. And Kim came right out and again started talking about her home and her neighborhood where she lived all of her life. She told us about the recent history of troubles in the neighborhood, and she told us what kinds of things were making things better. Kim is now a member of our board of ESNDC. Likewise, we met Regina when she was out working in her yard, and we were coming through the community. Regina was brand new to the neighborhood. She just bought a foreclosed home and was fixing it up. And while she was busy with her own home improvements, she noticed that the house next door was being demoed by the city. And so she went to the city and asked for a community garden there. Regina now is on the board of ESNDC and also on our district council planning committee. My Laura Zhang is a community member who was getting out of her car one day when we stopped her and talked about her life on the east side. She was living with her extended family at the time. Mai had so much enthusiasm and so much information that we went back 2 days later and offered Mai a job and said, why don't you come and work with us? And then today, Mai is a LISC AmeriCorps working in our neighborhood and working with the Hmong community to make sure that the Hmong community is tied into the engagement that we're doing. I wanted to mention Cleveland Adams and his family as well. Cleveland bought a house on the east side for $1 20 years ago. He didn't really want to spend that $1, but his wife told him that he should start becoming responsible, so he put his $1 down. Cleveland has raised his children and his grandchildren in that house, and he now realizes it's time to give back to the neighborhood. And so Cleveland has been a strong leader in the community. Our community engagement strategies are starting to catch the attention of other stakeholders. Last year, we caught the attention of Jimmy and Rosalind Carter's work project. The Carters were looking for a neighborhood that was in need, and they were looking for a neighborhood that was very engaged. And so Habitat for Humanity selected the east side and built 15 homes, and we have 15 hopeful families new to our community. This next year, the Habitat is looking at seven more homes, and that'll be a great improvement because our area is really fairly small. 15 homes make a huge difference. 22 homes makes even a greater difference. This year, we caught the attention of the city of St. Paul and its NSP dollars. Now, we all know that the clock is ticking on NSP. And so we went to the city and showed them all of our community-based research. We laid out 13 documents in front of the city, all developed by the community, about the quality of the housing, which houses were owned and lived in, which houses were foreclosed, which houses were completely abandoned. The city looked at those documents and offered us the NSP3 money for our specific neighborhood. That's going to mean 30 new homes and 30 families within the next 3 years. This change will not just be noticeable, it's going to be transformational. Thankfully, we've always had the attention of LISC. ESNDC was the first CDC to be funded by LISC, Twin Cities LISC. Initially, they provided full salary for our housing department specialist and dollars for our first home loan program. For many years, LISC's general operating dollars were the glue that held our organization and kept our capacity where we needed it to be. And our commercial development programs were funded by LISC's Main Street program. Their technical assistance regarding asset management and commercial expertise have been a huge help to our business owners and to our commercial district. And today, the AmeriCorps program, of course, has given us a strong entryway into the Hmong community. So what's next? We've realized at the beginning of the Prosperity Campaign that no organization is large enough, financially sound enough, powerful or influential enough to implement comprehensive community development alone. Community change and transformation is multifaceted and deep-rooted. The Prosperity Campaign offers the community and ESNDC a much more holistic approach to community transformation and wealth building. ESNDC now focuses on 3 core areas: community engagement, housing, and commercial development. But there are so many other issues that need to be addressed. Our education, as we heard so many times yesterday, our health care, public safety, youth development. All these other critical issues are being taken on by the Prosperity Campaign. The residents, the business owners, the youth, the schools, the faith-based institutions, all are joining together at the Prosperity Campaign with community members at the table. So the new ESNDC is still a community development corporation, It sees its work as much more comprehensive than bricks and mortar. It's place-based, it's asset-based, it bridges across cultures, and focuses on long-term transformation. Because of our work and the work of many of the Prosperity Campaign partners, the East Siders are expressing a renewed hope in their neighborhood and are thinking once again it's going to be a neighborhood of choice, not a neighborhood of last resorts. Thank you.
The city of St. Paul is a city of neighborhoods that are all unique, but the East Side has a unique flavor all to itself. It has such a rich history where communities of immigrants from across the globe would come and settle on the East Side and build their life for their family and build their future for their family right here in places like Swede Hollow, where it wasn't just the Swedes, it was the Italians and the Irish and immigrants from all over Eastern Europe.
What I like best about the East Side is the diversity. It's very diverse neighborhood. It's almost kind of mixed income as well. We have a lot of people that are been established here for a long time on the East Side. We have people that are new to the East Side. We have new businesses that are on the East Side. We have businesses that have been around for years. So I think it's kind of a collaboration of the new and the old kind of working together to improve the East Side still at the same time. I think one of the best things though is kind of the food too.
The food. There are so many great places to eat here. You can go from traditional Italian American food to Hmong food to Thai food and anything in between.
And just a mix of people, it's just awesome. It's really awesome. It's one of the few places in the city of St. Paul where it's all mixed up like it is. And to me, that's why people, in my mind, that's why people want to live in the city. That's what the city's about.
And so I think having that sense of community pride is extraordinary, and it doesn't happen everywhere. I think St. Paul really instills it, and certainly we on the East Side feel like we're the most vibrant in our enthusiasm for where we live.
Good, I don't have to dance. As I listened to Michael Rubinger address us at the opening luncheon 2 days ago, I was struck by how similar in age he and I must be. Both of us being boomers, we had the opportunity to witness some wonderful changes that the United States made while we were still young men. Those changes were made because we had leaders who were able to envision the transformational changes that were going to be taking place in America. In 1968, when Bobby Kennedy was running for president, he gave a speech whose words would forever impact how I was going to view the world and what I was going to try to accomplish as I became an adult. Bobby said, "Some men look at things the way they are and ask why. I dream of the way things could be and ask why not. I dream that the residents of the East Side, regardless of their position or title, can act to change their neighborhood, and they are empowered to help themselves and each other. I dream that culturally appropriate opportunities for prosperity and building wealth are available to all who seek and commit to pursue them. I dream that residents of all ages take advantage of high-quality learning opportunities in closing the achievement gap among students on the East Side. I dream all East Side residents are healthy, safe, hopeful, and at home in their community. These are the same dreams that my Dakota ancestors had for their families. These are the same dreams that my Irish ancestors brought with them when they fled the famine in the 1800s. These are the same dreams that Mary Bongiovanni's family had when they started their bakery. These are the dreams of the Latinos, the African Americans, Hmong Americans, Euro Americans, and American Indian people who now live on the East Side. These dreams are empowering the people of the East Side. Our residents have been encouraged to dream, and they have. Our residents have been told that change can come, and they believe it. Our residents have been encouraged to work for change, and they are. Our residents are ready, willing, and able. Change is coming. Shortly after we all get back to Minnesota from this nice conference, we're going to go through the final interview process and be bringing on a program manager that'll be heading up our Eastside Prosperity campaign. And this is going to put a lot more energy into it because we're going to finally have a staff person that can work full-time on the things that we've been trying to plan for all these last 6 years. This will help us to engage and mobilize our community at a new level and greatly speed up our comprehensive community development that the East Side longs for. Our Buy Local program will soon be ready to move on to the next level. Perhaps the funding support we need is here listening to us today. In a few months, we'll be reviewing a report on recommendations for some green energy producing initiatives that we're hoping to start in place 50 to 100 people to work in livable wage jobs on the East Side. This summer, our second Unity Youth Leadership Training Academy will continue their work in developing the leaders of the future. The East Side has dreamed of better days to come, and they are coming. In 1805, my Dakota grandfathers learned a very difficult lesson. What they learned is that if you allow your future to be dependent on subsidies and annuities that others will provide, your best days are behind you. Now, 200 plus years later, the people of Imanishka, the East Side, are learning that through their own efforts, in partnership with their neighbors, that their best days are ahead of them. I look forward to sharing our successes with you at the 35th.
Thank you. I think we have some time to entertain questions and maybe to kick things off. I'm going to ask a question of the panel to think about, and I'm going to pick on Mary first, because I think one of the things that you raised in your remarks, Mary, is the adaptive change and really the hard change about what it means to go another path or to try something different. And can you talk a little bit more about what the conversation inside the organization or with your board members looks like in trying to figure out, are we doing our work the way that we've always known it, or are we taking a leap of faith to do work differently?
Thank you. Well, we describe it in our organization as jumping off the cliff and hoping that the neighborhood jumps off with us. We were really going into uncharted territory, but it was something that many of us believed in wholeheartedly. We had on our board some traditional old-time East Siders who thought the best thing to do is to keep building. And we had some thoughtful East Siders who knew that even if we built a house on every vacant property, that it wasn't changing the lives of the community. So we spent 6 months in long, hard internal struggle about what our work is and what our work should be in this environment, and made some really difficult choices with what programs to keep and what programs to share with another organization. And we ended up with the engagement piece as being very strong and as a means towards community development through housing and economic development. And immediately afterwards, the board went through a 6-month strategic planning process. We threw our old strategic plan out the window and said we need something new and we need something active and dynamic, and that's what we're working on now. So it was difficult. It was challenging to explain to funders. It was challenging to explain to the bureaucrats, but since that time, people have said, good job, way to figure out what you do best and way to just change your course. So that's been our experience.
And Kevin, getting into the community development arena, but kind of being a core service organization for the community, you want to talk a little bit more about what that looks like in kind of coming to the table and trying to drive towards this more comprehensive approach and what it means for your organization?
In 2009, the American Family Center, American Indian Family Center went through a very comprehensive strategic plan, and we came out of it with a vision that American Indian family. It's where we were going to be where American Indian families thrived. In as much as 2/3 of the people we serve are residents of the East Side, unless the East Side thrives, we're not going to reach our vision. So we felt it was very important that we became a strategic partner in the East Side Prosperity Campaign because we thought it was the best thing going to help bring back the area. Living near the East Side all of my life, I saw the highs and the lows, and it's starting to be a vibrant area again. It's got a lot of work to do, but it's going the right direction. And you know, it's like I said, our families have dreams. They want the same thing for their families that we want for our families. They just need some better opportunities.
Susan, I was going to ask you a question about being more place-based, and that the East Side Financial Center and the work of the Centers for Working Families is kind of a new approach in kind of the model, and being a relatively new service organization to the community. What is that? Can you go a little bit deeper on what that's meant for the work and changing the work for you?
Yeah, the change for, we came into the East Side, and our work was pretty much a traditional credit counseling service model of how we serve people with, and just serving in people in crisis and really debt management programs. And this really coming into a new community, and then also a new way of providing service was a challenge, and we had to really think about how we were serving people and what changes we need to make. And it really did evolve, that we had to really step back and think. But what's really so to kind of shift to the coaching, or really, while we met people where we were at, we didn't really have that lot of ongoing relationship. But what's really changed, even in how we provide our service across all of our programming, is that we've really shifted, maybe not quite the same engagement, but really shifted our financial counseling model to kind of mirror and have more outreach and follow-up in the work that we do. So and I don't think that would have happened had we not become involved on the East Side, and really learning about what it is that people need. And just because we think they need financial counseling doesn't mean that they will come. And so it's really looking at what we need to do to kind of reach out to them as well.
So I think one of the things that is particularly unique about this neighborhood and the community that LISC has been working with in the Prosperity Campaign is that it really is a collaboration that predated really the idea of a broader quality of life plan or the comprehensive work. There was a lot of comprehensive work happening in multiple places, and that there were partnerships that were starting to form, and the Prosperity Campaign started to link some of those things together. But in collaboration, the word labor is there, so that means it's a lot of hard work. And can you all speak to that? And I also kind of invite folks to come up to the mic and maybe ask questions about how that, whatever's kind of on your mind about how you go about doing this, or how do you engage with other partners in the community that you may or may not have known prior to coming to that table. Whoever wants to jump in.
I think that question's directed to me. ESNDC was the recipient of the Otto Bremer grant that started the Prosperity Campaign. It was our organizational vision to begin with, and to give up this vision, give up this baby to the broader community, I think was really difficult for our organization. We had a vision. We knew what it was supposed to be. Do these other people at the table have the same vision? Can we trust them with our baby? So those were some of the challenges that we had. For example, when Susan came to the neighborhood and her organization moved into the old Swedish Bank building, which was a bank that we had just rehabbed, we had some ideas about what Susan should be doing there, and they didn't necessarily mesh with with everything that Lutheran Social Service had intended. And so there were struggles there. But ESNDC had to realize that they couldn't do financial counseling, that we couldn't do literacy training, that we can't do health care. There's so much that we can't do that we have to rely on each other to get the job done.
In the late 1800s, in all their wisdom, the U.S. government basically made it illegal to be an American Indian in this country. And it wasn't until 1978 that that law was stricken. And so discovering your heritage, discovering cultural practices is very important to American Indian people. It's very renewing to a lot of American Indian people. And so our program, it's a big emphasis on everything we do. Through the East Side Prosperity Campaign, I met some very interesting people. I met Elder Atu Mazar from the Cultural Wellness Center. Same value, same practices, just different things. She has spent hours with me explaining her philosophy and how she goes about it, which has enriched what we do in our program. Through the East Side Prosperity Campaign, I became close friends with Bao Vang, the executive director of the Hmong American Partnership. Their culture is very important to them. This past winter, Bao and I crafted a grant to Ramsey County to enter into employment with our 16 to 19-year-olds, and it was a reward. It was a culturally based program. Without the East Side Prosperity Campaign, we would have never come together. We would have probably been protected in our own little silo, and I've just seen this other little fruit going on, and it doesn't necessarily give credit to the East Side Prosperity Campaign, but it's happening over and over throughout our community. It's really interesting.
Questions from the audience? Yes, don't be shy. Come on.
I'm Debbie Goldberg from the National Fair Housing Alliance. I don't know if this is on, but
Mm-hmm.
you can hear me. So I'm interested in understanding a little bit more about the multicultural aspect of the neighborhood, because it sounds like there's quite a wide variety of folks from different races, national origins, ethnicities, et cetera. And so I'm curious about, I'm getting some of the sense of how that plays out among organizations, and it sounds like it's been very, as you say, enriching. And I'm curious about whether there's an intentionality about your multicultural vision for the neighborhood in terms of individuals, and whether there are efforts at all to reach out to folks who don't already reside in the community from different races and national origins to try and attract them, and also whether you have to deal at all or are dealing at all with barriers that people may face based on race or national origin or ethnicity in their efforts to find a place to live on the East Side.
When we first started knocking on doors and inviting people to come to meetings, we looked like I look. And if people couldn't speak English, I couldn't communicate with them at all. And many of the houses were Spanish-speaking houses. Many of the houses were Hmong-speaking houses. Or maybe if I was lucky, the 7 or 8-year-old would come and translate for grandma in however best he could. And I remember translating for my own grandparents, and so that made me realize that we really do have some barriers here. And we have intentionally hired multicultural staff and multilingual staff so we go out in trilingual teams now. We don't go out alone. We go out in groups of 3, and whoever can speak the language of the person who answers the door takes the lead. Also, we take extensive notes when we get back, so we know which is a Spanish-speaking household, and we know which is a Hmong-speaking household, and what our history with them has been. So we didn't start off being really intentional about that, but realized immediately that that was a necessity. And also, people were not able to talk to each other in their own neighborhood, and so we had to provide translation mechanisms so that they could talk with each other and communicate well. And finally, people really needed some assistance and needed to find out how they get that. And they didn't find that out by us English speakers. They found it out by talking to people who look like they looked and talk like they look. So we're at ESNDC, at least, we're just getting a whole new group of people and a whole level of need and opportunity that we hadn't seen before.
We don't have ethnic neighborhoods per se on the east side. We're like a wonderful collage. People are all mixed together, so there doesn't tend to be any, well, this is the African American neighborhood or this is the Latino. Everybody's all mixed together. And even it's gone as far as to a big corporation like U.S. Bank. We have a local branch right almost across the street from where Mary's office is, and you can go in there, and if you only speak Hmong, there's somebody that can help you. If you only speak Spanish, there's somebody that can help you. They've adapted themselves to the community wonderfully, and it's carrying out in a lot of things we do there.
So part of that question was also about destination a bit in terms of is there an opportunity for maximizing or optimizing that diversity for folks who are searching that either through heritage or interests? And maybe talk a little bit more about that, because the east side is probably like a lot of neighborhoods around the country that's been kind of a port of entry kind of neighborhood where it was affordable and people had the chance to kind of find affordable housing or were able to set up a business, and because either there wasn't anybody there, they had moved on. The idea of moving on from the Lower East Side up to the lake, up to Phelan Lake, was kind of the path. And so waves of other folks would come after that. But talk about that kind of in the current, like where's the opportunity? Are folks moving around as much? Are they finding each other? Is it a destination of sort?
Well, when I was a child, of course, it was a destination. We chose that neighborhood because the factories were there and the opportunities were there. And as we went through 2 waves of foreclosure and a lot of other crises, the East Side became the neighborhood of last resort. The only people who were there were the people that were stuck there because they couldn't afford anything else. And that was really a place of doom and gloom for all of us. But it's turning around now in that the Latino population is thriving with the commercial district. There are so many great shops and businesses that are Latino owned, and the Hmong population has been there since the late 70s, and they're thriving. And a nice thing also is that young people are coming into the community, and that's really been a sign of hope for me. Young people are coming because it's still the most affordable place to live, but they're also coming because they see the energy of the community. When I interview new board members and I've asked, why do you want to be on this board? People will say, well, I read in the paper about all the good things that are happening, and I ask, well, who's doing all that? And it'll be one of the prosperity campaign groups. And so they're choosing the neighborhood as a destination because it reflects their values, because it reflects their heritage, and because there's a lot of synergy there.
Kevin or Susan, any other additions?
There's another group working in the greater metropolitan area trying to establish different cultural and ethnic tourist destinations in the Twin Cities area. And Mary's had a staff member that's been active in that group, planning group, as well as I have. And I think because of how we've coalesced on the east side through the Prosperity Campaign, our particular sector is kind of tending to lead that group. And the whole object is to work with people to bring it in so that we start bringing money into the community instead of money exiting the community. And it's brought in some people from the tourism department of the city of St. Paul. They've worked with us, and this effort is probably only about a year in the making, but of all the communities that are working on it, because of how well the Prosperity Campaign has been established, it seems that we get a lot of attention as a result of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, next question.
Hi, it's great to meet you all in person. Lisa Hasegawa, National Coalition for Asian Pacific American Community Development. And we're actually one of the funders of both the HAP, Hmong American Partnership, and also ADA, the Asian Economic Development Association. And so I think that one of the challenges, and we see this everywhere, not just in the Twin Cities, but I just wanted to get your perspectives on that balance between sort of hiring staff within your own organizations of the community and building the capacity with the partnering organizations. So I heard a little bit of both, like, there's the partnerships and then there's also both are important, but in times of limited resources, how are you guys thinking about making those choices and really thinking longer term? Because I have heard a lot of times mainstream organizations, will hire staff and then there's a lot of turnover, and then when the funding's gone, the capacity's gone.
And they're gone.
So, or they go into the banking sector or something. So, just would love your perspective on that, and I'd love to follow up with you afterwards too. Thanks.
Great. Yes, I think we see hiring people that reflect the community as just the first step, just the port of entry for the community to become involved. We have one Hmong worker, and she is busy. She can't go to the laundromat without taking applications for people for one program or another, because everybody knows, that Mai's the person to talk to. But our singular staff cannot handle the amount of opportunity that's out there. And so I see cultural workers as just being the point of entry, to have people know a place to come and then to refer them on to Hmong American Partnership, to refer them on to the Cultural Wellness Center, to refer them on to Casa de Esperanza, strong partners, all of them that can do so much more than we can do. And also, ESNDC's had a strong history in housing development, and now housing development is a huge need for the Hmong American community and for the Native American community. And HAP and other organizations have not been on the roadmap for the city as housing developers. And so ESNDC has stepped out there as housing developers and said, these people need the capacity for housing development as well. And so the city needs to recognize the culturally based groups as being housing developers, and we will help them do that.
I'm going to actually tag on to that one last question, and I know we're pressing up against time, but one of the kind of insider baseball kinds of conversations that LISC approached, so in the Twin Cities, a little over 12 years ago, we were part of the Human Capital Development Initiative, which was part of then the National Community Development Initiative, and we created a program called the Careership, which was the idea of training leaders of color, professionals of color, who may have been in other sectors, might have been in the banking sector, or might have been in a social service organization, or but had been a volunteer in their community, to learn the skills to enter into the community development arena. And so over time, we paired what was a year-long apprenticeship, part-time apprenticeship for folks, to walk alongside community developers who were doing kind of the technical sides of the work. And I think we are a little over 120 people who have been through that program, and pairing kind of that pool of alumni who a little over 60% of whom are employed in the field, whether it's in community development organizations or in culturally based organizations that are doing development, or government or philanthropy, kind of the broad sector. I mean, I think it's building both that kind of pipeline and professional integration, interweaving of kind of both the organizational work that needs to happen and kind of the professional development work. That work also launched a broader initiative inside the Twins, really inside Minnesota, that was called the Changing the Face of Housing Initiative. Again, looking at, well, if this community development sector has all of the changing demographics happening in our communities, and yet the sector itself looks white European American and is not changing, how do we break that down? How do we foster new relationships between those organizations, to those that might be grounded in cultural communities, but then wanting to either partner alongside? So what would it take to help develop those skills and develop those partnerships around projects, around the affordable housing projects or around commercial redevelopment? And so you can look kind of across the spectrum in the Twin Cities, whether it's neighborhood development centers, small business and micro-entrepreneurship program, partnering with neighborhood-based organizations and cultural organizations, finding that entrepreneurial energy in the neighborhoods and connecting that up. And so it's back to that, not everybody's going to bring everything, but like really working hard and bringing the right resource to kind of help pair those partnerships together. Because partnering isn't easy, and you don't do it just for free all the time, or you don't do it just, you do it out of necessity, but it does take time and energy and costs associated with it, whether it's a little bit of money for a stipend for someone to be following folks around, or to structure legal agreements between organizations for projects. I mean, I think it's that kind of work that we need to kind of keep fostering and then apply to the collaborations that have formed on the ground. I don't know if folks have any other kinds of parting thoughts that we want to leave folks with, because we are between them and lunch. So,
Any other questions? Thank
do
you.
you want to take just a 1 minute to any kind of parting thoughts to leave folks with about how we're building prosperity on the East Side as kind of closing remarks? Or?
We're building prosperity on the East Side by putting the community members, the families, the children, the elders at the planning table and attracting the attention of the decision makers and moving forward with the community plans.
And we're working on the individual level, helping people with their financial challenges and hopefully providing stability so that they can be productive community members and work in making the community as a whole better, and to work with the engagement that Mary's organization does.
At the Family Center, working with the families that we work with, we're building prosperity by just encouraging that prosperity is something that they can achieve for their families.
Well, thank you all for joining us here on the east side of St. Paul. We're working to build prosperity both not only for places, but for people in those places. And we're really exploring new ways and new models for supporting how that work gets done. And so you've seen a little bit of that today as part of all of what we've seen over the last couple of days. So thank you for coming, and thank you for helping us celebrate our 30 years at LISC.